What's up guys, Nakma here and back with more Danganronpa content. I originally thought I will be doing this with someone else, but screw that. The first case of Danganronpa, interesting. It's definitely, it's the very first case, so I can't really be harsh on it. But at the same time, I kinda do think not the greatest first impression. I think it's very similar to Ace Attorney's first case in the sense that pretty darn easy. But I think the difference between Ace Attorney and Danganronpa is that Ace Attorney makes it so that its main appeal is pointing out lies. Even though technically both cases are really easy, I guess in that sense, comparing things is really not a great idea because this case, it doesn't just, spoil itself like Ace Attorney case 1 does. But at the same time, compared to the other cases, it's definitely not one of my favorites. Mainly because 1103 is, if you just guess that trick, you're gonna find the culprit, and especially with how Kyoko guesses it, makes it really weird for Makoto because we are playing as Makoto, and we want as a player for Makoto to figure this case out, and then Kyoko just figures it out but just refuses to tell anyone. She does give a huge hint though, in the sense that Sayaka has to be leaning against the wall in order to draw it. I always think that hint is too much. It would be one thing if she just gave that hint during the trial, but she gave that hint during the investigation here. So I think that kind of made it a little too easy. And I kind of am glad that this final message exists because it kind of redeems Sayaka in the sense that, yeah, she was kind of a dick for trying to accuse Makoto of and frame him, but in her final moments she did write it out. This is also one of the biggest issues of these types of last message writings, because if you figured it out, you figured it out, the entire thing. It's kind of weird to just see and watch everyone argue with one another for an entire hour. But it's fine. I think for the first case it's alright. I personally don't think there really isn't any bad Danganronpa case, but if we are going to be ranking things, we're always going to default into comparisons. So I think it's going to be one of the weakest cases in the series. That doesn't mean that I dislike it. I was really super sad and pissed off when Sayaka first died, but it kind of just goes to show how I really cared about the characters back then. I think I played this game or watched a Let's Play of it about 10 years ago, about a decade ago. I was a kid, and I still cared a lot. Yeah, I think Kyoko was giving me a little bit too much of a hint. I guess this is one thing that Kuraka really does, and still kind of overdoes it, in the sense that he taunts the player a little too much, and he also gives too much of a hint and too much of a big explanation. There's a difference between giving, not letting the player be confused and giving huge ass hints too early on. I think Kyoko also kind of has a reason to doubt Makoto too, so it also kind of makes sense for her to just be silent during the investigation, because a lot of detectives do stay silent for a long time, either because letting out their fury might cause the group to go into a certain tunnel vision, which is why the detectives don't usually tunnel into a single fury like that. And also because if they keep talking to the suspects about their own furies, then the suspects might be the actual culprit, and they might actually try and kill the detective also. So there's also a problem in that. What I'm trying to say is that, yeah, Kyoko definitely could have shut up more by turning only her hand toward the wall. It's kind of worded really weirdly. Oh, yeah. Basically, it's almost spelling it out. But I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't figure it out. It's also because this game was originally Japanese. So I can't really fault for Japanese students to not figure out that 11037 is Leon. If they flipped it down upside down, they wouldn't exactly know English. If they don't know English, they don't know English. I mean, yeah, it kind of also has to do with character writing, right? Because one of the things that's making these cases so difficult to write is that you want an interesting case for the player to solve, but also you want it for every single character to makes sense. I mean, for the first case, it's usually easy because you could also always characterize your own characters and characterize them in a way that it perfectly fits fits the situation and the mystery you want to write. But afterwards, when you write a sequel, you have to write the mystery and make the mystery fit the characters, not the other way around. But I think it kind of also gives Kyoko a little bit of a redeeming fact in the sense that she figured it out. She also gave Makoto a hint in the sense that she cares about him, and she also straight up says that you need to solve this on your own. But I don't know. I think making this case a little harder without making Kyoko look like a complete bitch is also possible. I guess there's also the possibility that Leon could have seen the dying message and just erased it. There are other ways to catch that Leon is the culprit. But you know, it's kind of cool to use what Sayaka wrote as an evidence to accuse Leon. It's cute. It's cute. This case is kind of cute. I think I really don't appreciate the fact that early Kadaka and how he just sort of underestimates everyone and goes to the mentality of, oh, this is the first case, you no need to go all in. No, especially in this day and age where time is important and people don't wait around. You need to create a really, really good first impression. I think that's really important. Okay, yeah, it's the probably not going to rank it much higher. Yeah, I think this case is probably around here. The second case is a huge step up in my opinion. Yeah, this case is really good at messing up with your mind and also having a lot of red herrings. Toko is a red herring. It also could circle back to Byakuya being the culprit. It's a really good case. I think it definitely ups the difficulty a lot by giving a lot of red herrings. Well, it's not that much of a fair case. I also really don't want to put it against this case because, like I said, I previously complained about case 1 being too easy, and I can't just complain about Mondo being too much of a difficult culprit to figure it out. But, you know, I think it's just, at the end of the day, you really shouldn't hold on to this weird beliefs of what is considered the good writing or what is considered the bad writing. I think one of the impressive aspects about Danganronpa 1 is the fact that it's definitely the most grounded of all the Danganronpa cases, Danganronpa stories. It just gets crazier and crazier from now on. And this case is really well made, despite the fact that it's also super somewhat realistic and also down to earth. And when it's also things that are super down to earth, you usually have cases where someone can easily escape from their crime, like Mondo did. Because in real life, a lot of culprits do escape. I think in America you should definitely research this, and I think there's a 70% chance that someone could get away with crimes like murder and stuff in America or something. Like the odds of that happening. Yeah, and it's also really convenient for Mondo in the sense that the crime did happen during nighttime. So there wasn't really anyone going around except but Byakuya saw him, but Byakuya doesn't tell anything, and he instead tries to taunt the others and try to test the others with this. But the trick is pretty interesting. You can also see the girl poster being in the girl room and the other poster being in the boys room, and also kind of test your your common sense as well as your memory, because I'm pretty sure early in the chapter the posters were in different places. And I also do have to commend this case for not making the characters appear too dumb, because I think case 3 and largely case 1 also kind of fell into that hole. Yeah, there's the dude. He says Chihiro's a dude. He kind of messes up. One of the key evidence that solves this case is Mondo's key card, and Mondo also manages to know about how ID cards can get corrupted and destroyed during in intense heat in the shower. And so it kind of connects the whole Mondo being friends with Ishimaru plotline into the murder mystery, and that's really well made. It's a really well made case. And Byakuya serves a very similar role to Makoto, I mean Nagito, in the sense that he makes the cases more interesting, more difficult. He serves as a more red herring, helps also the culprit in a way. So yeah, your case definitely, in order for your case to be more interesting, you definitely need some Nagitos going around in your game, I guess. Yeah, so overall, a really good case. I still am not really sure about ranking it higher. I definitely like the differences between Mondo, Chihiro, and how Chihiro wanted, how Mondo wanted to appear to be strong, but he couldn't let other people know about his truth, and that kind of made him weak. Whereas Chihiro was willing to expose her own secret, his own secret, and was willing to go get stronger. It's a nice little contrast in it, and also Ishimaru being super sad. It's kind of heartbreaking. It's a good case. I think in terms of themes, it's also very interesting and very emotional too. Case 1-3. Oh man, this case could have been great, but I think it's weird. I think it's. I really don't want to think this case is like awful. I still put it above 1-1, but 1-3 is it could have been better. But at the same time, it's also sort of inevitable, right? You almost don't want to criticize Celeste, especially for how cold she is. Like, being cold is entirely her thing. And I also think people are comparing it to the drama of 1-2 is really hard and difficult. Yes, it kind of sucks that Ishimaru has to get killed by Hifumi and stuff like that. Kaneko really loved his final death moments, dying messages, in Danganronpa 1, because later in the series you barely have any dying message storylines. Because I always thought it was kind of contrived in Danganronpa 1 and in a lot of different. For example, in Detective Conan, there are certain dying messages that are too abstract to the point that, or too creative to the point that it's kind of almost impossible for a regular person to just piece it together what the dying messages is. And sometimes in Danganronpa 1, you have something that's kind of bullshit. Hifumi says Yasuhiro did it, despite the fact that we've been talking about how Celestia's name is Celeste. And Hifumi perfectly knew that we will get it all twisted up, but Hifumi kind of made an oopsie and said Yasuhiro did it, kind of created a whole bunch of confusion. This case also kind of fell us into the whole 1-1 trap of making things way too easy. It's way too overcomplicated and at the same time way too easy. I think Celestia just really sucks at acting. It's really funny. It makes the Hope Speak Academy scouting regime look a little too dumb because she's really not that good at hiding herself. Yes, I know there's an explanation that, that's the point, whole point, Celestia is not perfect as she appears to be. And that's true. The writing also admits that, Celestia also admits that, yeah, she was pretending to say something like adapt or whatever. She really didn't enjoy being here. That's totally understandable. But come on, dude. Byakuya had better acting than you. And I mean, Byakuya is really one of the smartest characters in the game, but you could have matched him, Celestia, girl. She was really too emotional during some of the scenes, and I guess certain evidence like that are dead giveaway. But it's not the worst case ever. I think it's still at the end of the day definitely a little bit harder than 1-1. I mean, it probably is harder than 1-1. I mean, it has to be. Yes, Celestia is a bad actor, but other than that, I think one of the biggest things that gave away Celestia to me was the fact that she took a picture of Hifumi being attacked by the robot, and that is so weird. That is so weird. That is not something a normal person will do. That's also not something Celestia, I think, would have done. From what I have known, Celestia will have either tried to fight the giant robot normally. And I don't even think that she will do that normally. Normally she will just run away. And yeah, she was probably cornered or something, I guess, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And also, Yasuhiro's costume not working and it not being able to be controlled, or someone not being able to maneuver inside it. And as soon as we figured that out, immediately Celestia becomes sus because Celestia said that Yasuhiro was attacking Hifumi. So her plan also had huge holes in it too, almost too much hole compared to what Leon did. At least with Leon's trick, there are two evidence that pointed towards him, and those two aren't that obvious. Whereas this one's a little bit obvious, maybe. I think Celestia definitely underestimated the others, and he also tried too hard to pin things on Yasuhiro and made a huge deal and mistake. Yeah, I think that's a lot of mistakes a lot of characters do. Like, Celestia could have let Ishimaru die in the hands of Hifumi. Then Celestia could have killed Hifumi herself and then just run away. And she might have actually gone out with it. If you a lot of hit and run cases is that it's so hard to figure it out because a lot of in real life cases are also hit and run away. Those cases are either entirely solvable, entirely obvious because there's a security camera and whatnot. These culprits never really get caught because of the fact that their crime is so simple and therefore there really isn't any evidence to go by. It's really not a very fun case to solve. I think 1-3 is a little bit funner than 1-1, so that's probably why I put it higher. I guess that's one of the things. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here, and you also have to admit that the difference between real life and fiction is that fiction is trying to make an entertaining experience. Real life doesn't care about your entertainment. Things just happen. And these culprits aren't trying to entertain you, they're just trying to escape. So therefore a lot of cases are really simplistic in real life. And a lot of cases, so the cops have to try and mind game the culprit into confessing, into reaction testing a lot of the suspects. That's one of the desperate reasons why cops do that. It's bad, it's kind of difficult. But at the same time, real cops have to play Among Us, not because even in the game of Among Us, I think Among Us existing and being popular has really shed light in criminal investigation and gave a lot of experience to people of all ages. It just goes to show that sometimes there are cases where things are immediately obvious. Sometimes it's a 50-50 shot where one person is saying this person did the crime and the other person is saying no, that person did the crime. And there are also cases where the culprit did such a great move in the sense that it's almost impossible to figure it out. But I think I especially really like Among Us settings and the cases where everyone is sort of taking the caring about the mystery and winning the game. So therefore a lot of people actually write down everyone's alibis. As soon as a lot of serial killings happen, you try to piece together everyone's alibis and figure out who is the killer through seeing, okay, this person could have done the serial killings all by themselves. Something like that, like the links between different cases. I think that Danganronpa also definitely could have had more cases like that. I think the ruling of executing everyone for not getting the culprit is kind of preventing that. I actually kind of really wish they'll negate that rule and try to have more serial killings happen. Maybe that might create a variety. And I also think that's more more realistic too, because in real life, a lot of culprits get caught not because they did it once. It's because they keep doing it again and again. That's why a lot of serial killers get caught during their third or fourth killings. If someone randomly just want to kill someone in the middle of nowhere, then it's kind of hard to do, especially if that culprit had a gun or something. And yeah, there's also the whole Justice Hammer thing too. It's kind of really dumb. Like, why did Celeste even think that the characters would care about which Justice Hammer was used when? I think Celeste was just sort of copying what Byakuya did, or copying what Genocider did, and tried to create a serial killer and made everyone think that the Justice Hammers were going to be used. So Celeste is kind of an idiot, and I think that also kind of shows that Kodaka was also trying to force the players into thinking that. I don't know what's Kodaka's opinion on 1-3, but I don't think this case is really that great. It's still good. It's still enjoyable, I guess, but I think there's a certain logical weirdness to it. And I really, at the same time, all of these logical things could just be explained as, oh, Celestia is just not that smart. The characters are just not that smart. In this case, it really made Aoi look like a fucking idiot. I kind of don't like that. I like smart Aoi. Aoi was really cute and understandable in 1-4. She isn't that stupid in the other cases as much as she was in 1-3, I think. So there's a little bit of an there. So I think chapter 4 emotionally is a very strong case. And it also has a lot of interesting things happening too, like Yasuhiro and Toko both attacking Sakura. Aoi also trying to kill everyone. It's also kind of really messed up, but at the same time, it's super sad. I kind of really feel bad for Aoi and Sakura. A lot of people. It's a very emotional trial. I think in that sense, it's also well done. And it feels so satisfying to give Togami so much shit, and Togami messing things up because he underestimated Aoi, and he only thought that she would think of herself, because that's, surprise, surprise, people usually always just self-project. Byakuya doesn't understand someone being super sad and mad and trying to take everyone down with them. She only understands people's own selfishness. That's kind of why Togami sort of self-projects, and therefore he kind of fails to solve this case. I think that's a super interesting aspect. I think the story of everyone and everyone involved is really good, and that really elevated this case. I think that arguably made it my favorite in the entire game. Yeah, I think the story around it was really good. And yeah, I guess it's really, I really can't blame this case for being predictable, because suicide cases were always going to be like predictable. And Sakura's whole point was the fact that she was trying to make it seem like she killed herself too. I mean, I guess Aoi, after finding the body, could have done a better job but at the same time, other people were looking at her, so she couldn't really have done much. So despite this case being sort of easy and sort of easy to figure things out that Sakura did commit suicide, I also can't really blame this case, because everything in it just makes sense for the most part. It's just the very nature of Sakura wanting her friends to be freed of their fears and not be afraid of her, and also Sakura giving her life away to save her clan or something like that. And there was also the fun aspect of Yasuhiro thinking himself to be the culprit that also added to the red herrings. Yeah, this case also used Toko and Yasuhiro and Aoi to create a really good red herring. I think that those really helped. But you know, if you don't fall for the red herrings, you don't fall for them. But at the same time, I also do think that a fun of these cases isn't necessarily just to find the truth, but also to absolutely debunk the wrong theories. I think there's a lot. People just need to stop viewing these cases, because that's the difference between Ace Attorney and Danganronpa. People in Danganronpa usually just go to the full mentality of, oh, I knew who the culprit is, that's why this case is bad, or why I didn't like it. That's a really shitty way to look at it. If you like want to believe that, then that belief is just going to get in the way of you enjoying things and appreciating things more clearly, and seeing and learning from them more clearly. There's a lot of great voice acting in this. There's a lot of great storytelling going on, and also the gameplay was really cool. Just trying to piece together what happens sequentially, and trying to debunk the fear of Toko and Yasuhiro being the culprit, debunk the fear of Aoi being the culprit. You know, debunking fear is kind of fun. It can be fun if you appreciate things for what it is. I definitely appreciate this case for what it is. You know what? I feel a little bit bad for having Danganronpa 1 cases not being in a single A or S. I'll still put it here. It's really low A, I think. There's a lot of huge, amazing cases in Danganronpa 2 and 1. Danganronpa 2 and 3 that I think 1 is sort of lacking. This case at the end of the day is still kind of predictable. Kind of super grounded in my opinion. It doesn't go uppity crazy. It doesn't do some crazy shit like that. But it's fine, it's still a really good case. The 5th chapter was also really interesting too. I think people are really cruel to this chapter simply because we have to use an actual evidence to debunk Yasuhiro's stupid theory of Kyoko is a ghost. Yeah, it's kind of dumb, I admit. But you can't just hate on this case entirely because of that. Because this case is super amazing in the sense that despite the fact that there are so few suspects left, Kudaka managed to make this case really interesting and fun and engaging. Gameplay wise and in terms of story wise, because story wise it's Kyoko versus Makoto. And Kyoko is still as smart as always. The arguments she give out is super smart, and I really appreciate the fact that Kudaka really made it his vow to make it consistent that Kyoko is smart. Even if the cases themselves are super obvious, usually Kyoko is already smart and level-headed. And the funny thing is that a lot of people kind of don't like the aspect that Kyoko is only solo in the cases, and everyone is kind of being a dumbass. But here's the thing, I think that's actually true to real life. If you randomly select a bunch of students and then pit them against in a death game of sorts, and force them to solve mysteries, they might just suck ass. Because I also ran a Discord server where we solve murder mysteries, and it's very apparent that who's smart and who's dumb. Like, I don't really want to mock other people for being dumb or something. I'm not trying to mock them. But feat-wise, it's very obvious that certain people are just built different. Certain people were just born lucky. Certain people had training well. Certain people are just really lucky to be born smart, I guess. Because there are instances where like 8 or 7 certain people were actually working on trying to solve the mystery I wrought. And those people were failing and fucking it up. And I thought that, did I make this case too hard? And then I started giving small hints and they just can't solve it. Then one guy comes in and just solves the whole thing in like 2 days. And then one guy just single-handedly solves everything, and he's just super smart and better than everyone else. So yeah, that thing's kind of happen in real life too. And I think Kyoko is really super smart, and arguing against Kyoko was also really fun. It's really fun to do that. It's so fun to watch other people do that. It's fun to watch myself do that. But yeah, I also kind of like rewatch a lot of let's plays. Like Danganronpa let's plays are a godsend because I think the mystery games as a whole is an amazing genre to do a let's play as. I'm really looking forward to the detective game that Kudaka has made. Also, Raincoat that's soon going to get out. I guess Kudaka also might have made things a little too simplistic again. Everyone else having an alibi except Makoto and Kyoko is kind of, well, makes this case really fast-paced and super easy. Despite the fact that this case is the final case, the 5th case. Maybe he probably needed some other plot points to shake things up, maybe. But at the same time, making Toko and Hagakura do something stupid again after case 4 is kind of difficult to watch, which is why I understand. Like, everyone had a huge, beautiful character development after chapter 4, so it kind of makes it hard for them to do dumb and evil stuff, so that they will serve as a red herring. So yeah, I really can't blame Kodaka that much. You know, he's still at the end of the day, it's still a really great case. But you know, you don't really have to like give everyone a freaking alibi. Was that really necessary? Like, it will be kind of fun and interesting to have unique ways to cross out Toko, Hakakura, and Byakuya from the suspect list. Other than just, hey, they had an alibi. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you could have gone a little bit creative here. Kodaka, maybe. Because this case is so fast. It's actually really fun, but also really short. Yeah, like, what is this? Look at this. Yeah, it's an hour. It's an hour long. And if you like press things faster and like solve the things a lot faster, without waiting the voice acting and stuff, you can probably solve it even faster than that. It's an hour long, but like almost 15 minutes long. And yeah, it's still super short. Maybe a little too short, but I honestly kind of really want to put it here because a lot of people are underrating it. And I also think this case is really fun in the sense that we don't know exactly are sure who's the victim is. Technically, we think it's Makuro, but Monokoma's kind of fucking things up. So I think that in that sense, it's also a super gimmicky but interesting case. It's super interesting in that sense. Some people might like this case. It's an eye for an eye, I think. A super eye for an eye. I also kind of want to put 1/6 here. Speaking of chapter 6, I also think it's super cool that you figure out Junko's true identity. I mean, Mukuro died in case 1, and we also kind of go back to that case and realize that, oh, this new body's symptoms in its state completely matches with how Mukuro's body was. And that's super cool because a lot of interesting cases in my favorite mystery games also uses the fact that certain things happen in case 1. Therefore it challenges the player's memories a lot. So it's really cool that it uses like that, and it adds an extra layer of difficulty. Now, if you don't remember, you don't remember. Certain people have a really good memory. I kind of don't like how this case makes Kyoko a little too dumb. They also tried to make the mystery a little even too hard for Kyoko to figure out. But it's pretty easy to figure out that we lost our memories. I guess it kind of makes sense that she's a little too egoistic. She thinks that just because I solved this many cases that I know everything, and that she might have, because of that ego, she might have completely neglected the possibility of her losing memories, her having amnesia, because selective amnesia and other people causing other people amnesia is not something that's really possible. For now, I think it's actually theoretically possible. So yeah, I think they kind of like all this whole shocked Kyoko, and they made shocked Kyoko a little too used it. And I don't know, I kind of wanted Kyoko to be super smart and figure things out. Junko as a villain, yeah, it's alright. I think her connection with Mukuro and stuff kind of worked out. I guess it would be nice if she talked about her motives a little better and not just despair and stuff. I kind of want to understand her more. But I mean, it's fine, right? It's really not just a criticism. I think people are just kind of overestimate how Junko is a dumb villain or something like that. I don't think so. I think she's just super underdeveloped due to her being introduced at the end of the game. But like, it's fine. It also doesn't make sense for the mastermind to just be inside the group. It doesn't have to be that way. It also kind of doesn't make sense logically also. Junko's a great actor, but she's not that great. To be fair, Junko doesn't look that different than Mukuro. I think they were both equally kind of cute. 1/6 is kind of a little bit underwhelming in the sense that, yeah, if you're kind of smart, you can always see that everyone lost their memory twist from a mile away, and the game kind of really underestimates you and give out hints a little too early. Despair, hope, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is certain like depths to it, I understand, but the outside world is destroyed. Yeah, we kind of need more elaboration on that. Danganronpa V3 kind of tries to do that. But in all honesty, Danganronpa 2 almost did a better job. I almost think that Danganronpa 3D animation was really unneeded. And it also kind of ruined and contradicted the whole bunch of things that happened in Danganronpa 2 and 1. Yeah, that's my opinion on the Danganronpa 3 anime. It probably didn't even need to exist. Probably made things a lot difficult because of the way it contradicted Danganronpa 1 and 3 and 2. Yeah, this case is fine. I guess it's alright. I think I need to hurry up. I am trying to find more things to say, but it's kind of hard to say things about Danganronpa 1 because the cases are so simplistic. And you all know what happens in it. I have nothing to say other than the fact that, well, I kind of enjoyed it. Could have been more impressive, possibly. I think Kataka really enjoyed being down to earth in Danganronpa 1 a little too much. So the later games are crazy in murder mysteries, crazy in plot twists. Yeah, it's much crazier, but at the same time much smarter too. Because despite the virtual world twist being a more mad twist, the characters are super logical, and they also ask a really important question such as why didn't we age? Why did certain things happen? Or what was this magic stuff? Like all this, like Usami using magic and stuff. You kind of think that, oh wait, that's kind of weird, and then later realize, oh wait, that actually makes sense because we're in the virtual reality. The way Monokuma took control of as the teacher role and how he operates and what Monokuma can do and can't do is super interesting. And yeah, the twist is really cool. And speaking of the twist, the first case is pretty cool. I definitely think that Kudaka also underestimated the players a little too much. Mentions using Chiaki told them about the fury of someone stabbing someone under the floorboards. I really not a huge fan of talking about that fury a little too early because it's a strange thing. Like, I know what Kurako wants certain things to be super fair, but at the same time, I kind of think it's weird to just give away the fury like that, because once you figure out that the fury is somewhat plausible, that fury is stuck in your head. You almost figure out things out through just knowing the possibility of that. As an author, you kind of really want to realize, okay, these are the things that normally what the average person would say, normally what the detective or this character will normally think. This character's intellect level will reach this level, so I think this character theorizing and figuring this out already is fine. But I don't know. I think stepping through the floorboards is such a unique twist that most players wouldn't think about it until they heard Chiaki saying it. And yeah, I actually suspected Teru when I played this, but not because of the floorboard or the alibi thing or whatever. I actually suspected the food was in the laxatives was in the food, and then I suspected that Teru must have put laxatives in it. So yeah, I suspected Teru, but for the completely wrong reason, and that Fury got shot down. It's still kind of weird that Peiko just suddenly decided to go poopy as soon as she ate Teru's food. Maybe she just has problems in her stomach, I guess. Oh, there's the anus. Game Grumps made a really funny edit with that. This case is really good. I think Naruto is a really interesting character, and he also becomes such a great red herring throughout the entire game overall. Yeah, you kind of need a little bit of Naruto's in your murder mystery cases. Otherwise, things just won't be more interesting. Killings won't. If killings do happen, they need more red herrings and people to spice things up. Yeah, Naruto does that really well, and like the creativity of like stabbing someone through the floorboard is really smart, and also how the culprit managed to make the lights go out was really smart too. I actually suspected that Naruto might have made the lights go out, but then I thought that, wait a minute, he just pressed the button to turn the AC on. It's not his fault. Then I realized, then I didn't realize it. I actually think I went into the trial, and then in the trial I realized, oh, if you like make your 3 irons be activated, then you can like mess up the heat waves and heat systems like that. Then that's yeah, that's kind of a thing that can happen. But yeah, I think cases there were certain things certain crimes happen in the dark is also really interesting, because you kind of use everyone's ears and their ways they people usually use their eyes so much, forcing everyone to use their ears and their touch, their smells, and their other senses is also really unique. And I also do think that a lot of criminals also in real life try to use night vision goggles during nighttime, or try to blow the lights out in order to make certain crimes happen. So that's also somewhat of a neat trick from the culprit's side. And also, yeah, DR2 is really smart. He had a really smart trick of hiding the weapon inside the bone. I think this goes to just show that Kodaka's own experience and intellect grew over the course of these games. Like, he managed to grow. And the more you think about it, intelligence is not something that's you're born with. It's something you grow, but your growth could be wildly hampered through your own ego and your own dogmas. Oh, if you think, oh, these things are not fun, I don't want to do things, and you force yourself to dislike certain ideas and things, then that's just going to impact your intelligence and your creativity very negatively, because you're forcibly tying yourself up and crushing the options you have in writing, in your ways of deducing things. And I think in Danganronpa 1 and especially Danganronpa 2, and especially in this case, Byakuya, the imposter, and both Teruto and Nagito are all very smart. You really can't. You look at all three of them and think, yeah, they're really smart individuals. All three of them. They really tried also hard to do what they thought was right. Teruto trying to kill Nagito, Nagito thinking and trying to do what he thinks is right, and the imposter also trying to stop whatever that's happening. And the differences between like something like case 3 is the fact that in this case, like, everyone is just smart, and you have a respect for all three characters, their smartness and their own willpower, and their own mentalities, and their consciousness, and their decision making, and who they are as a person. I kind of have respect for all three of them and what they did do, because all three of them were trying to do something that they thought was right, and they also gave all of it. They gave all of it, and used their big brains to do these crimes. So yeah, it was a really cool case. Yeah, I'm going to be putting it around. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I have to put it above 1-4, probably. There's a lot I like about 1-4, but at the end, the 1-4 is a suicide case, and it's kind of predictable. I think I actually kind of predicted that might be one of the answers. But with 2-1, unless you like paid attention to what Chiaki said about the floorboards, then you might miss out. And even if you didn't miss out, you might not immediately suspect Teru, because the light source is the only thing that kind of makes you suspect Teru, right? And also, yeah, the positioning of where the underground thing was, that kind of makes it. That Chiaki's mention of the floorboard kind of makes it so that you kind of suspect Teru. But it's not that bad. I still really enjoy Nagito's presence a lot. He made things a lot interesting. And I don't think in terms of drama, this case fails. It doesn't fail in that regard too. I think Nagito and people being surprised by Nagito and Hajime like going, Nagito, what happened to you, and stuff like that is so fun to watch. I still think it's really fun. It's fun in terms of drama, it's fun, and also the mystery is super creative and stuff. Okay, case 2, I really enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it so much because like I kind of have like soft spots for these horror types of games as well, and also trying to solve a past case and then linking it to what is happening in the present moment is kind of cool. Yeah, it kind of kills the pacing, but that's fine. I think people care about pacing because they don't enjoy the current present moment. When you're enjoying what you're doing, you don't care about pacing. You don't care about time because you enjoy things for what it is. You enjoy the experience. And I enjoyed solving this mystery of trying to figure out who is which girl. That's all. I mean, it's pretty easy, but it's cute. It's cute type of easy. Yeah, and also I think the trick is kind of really smart too. I heard the Pico like stepped on her sword and pulled it back out with her with her bag. Then I was like, bro, that's ingenious. That's big brain. I was like super impressed by that. There is sort of a like in the sense that Pico could have escaped and made this case into a much harder case to solve. But she overcomplicated her plan by dragging Mahiro and trying to frame Hyoko. A lot of characters in Danganronpa could have escaped if they just didn't try to frame someone else and made a mess of on their own. Yeah, the whole girly stuff. And people kind of didn't like it. I really enjoyed it. At least the first time I played it. And I still like I did actually rewatch this case with other Let's Players once. Yeah, and it's also such a great twist. There's a lot of red herrings also. I think Sonya's swimsuit is really great. It wasn't really mentioned by the other characters. There's definitely some things that could have mentioned, like if Pico was like accused, she could have like put the blame on Sonya or something. Like, hey, Sonya could have wore the swimsuit, or Fuyuko. I think Fuyuko didn't notice that Sonya was doing that, but I think certain other characters could have said something, I guess. But yeah, it's fine. It's really not a problem. I'm just saying. But Sonya is a really great red herring. Hyoko isn't that much of a red herring, despite Pico trying so hard to frame her. But you can't really blame her. Also, Fuyuhiko and Pico almost worked together, so in that sense, they're kind of both criminals, both the culprits. But Fuyuhiko and Pico working together, it kind of made things also added a lot of difficulty to this case, added a lot of complexity to it. And also, washing your blood with the water bottles, that's kind of cool. Stepping on the sword, that's really cool. Danganronpa 2 really did a great job of making the characters use their own talent to commit the murders. Yeah, and also hiding inside the waterboard box. That is kind of cool. That's smart, super smart. Danganronpa 2 was a really step up from Danganronpa 1. The case just felt a lot more smarter, a lot more creative. I'm not really sure about being able to use the standing on the sword and getting up and using the sword back to pull that sword back up. I'm not really sure how realistic that it is. It's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but it's possible. And I think that's kind of cool. 2-3 is kind of weird. I definitely like it better than 1-3. But there's a possibility that it's somewhere around here. I really didn't care much about Hyoko. And also, Hyoko and Ibuki just didn't really get to do much. As much as I really like the characters, like Ibuki, she doesn't contribute to this case at all. I think, Monokuma just sort of forced Ibuki to be so gullible, forced her to be the victim. Kind of pissed about that. But it's not a bad case because of that. I mean, it's still a good case. I still enjoy it, I think. Would I put it above 1-2? That's the question. It's not a bad case. It's not a bad case at all. It's still B, I think. But I don't know. I think one of the things that's kind of weird about this case is the fact that Mika. First of all, it's one of those extreme cases of the culprit overcomplicating their crime and then getting caught because of it. There's also certain plot holes that's happened with this. I kind of forgot which one was it, but I think Mika goes around a bunch of places while Hajime is warning. She literally, when Hajime went to others to warn the others, Mika literally went there, broke the shit and threw it down, and then tear this wall down. And she did a whole bunch of shit while Hajime was running. That's a super risky plan, and it almost kind of makes it seem unrealistic that Mikan did manage to do that many things in such a short amount of time. That's one thing. And yeah, this case is also maybe a little too obvious. Like, Mikan kind of really sucked at acting after she got the despair disease. But you know, I kind of really don't hate the despair disease that much. It kind of sucks that Nagito and Ibuka essentially became targets for the killings. But I think that was the point, right? Monokuma wanted killings to more easily happen. That's why he kind of like gave away two people and made it really easy to kill them. But there's still a lot to love about this case. I especially like how the door was locked with the glue, but the drumsticks were thrown in there to make it seem like it was a locked room mystery and that the culprit was actually hiding inside the venue, when that's really not the case. Oh, she actually kind of ate it. That's kind of gross. Chiaki. But you know, when your life's on it, you kind of don't have any right to be picky. I just really wish there was any other way to know without eating that. Yeah, this plan was super kind of messed up in the sense that the communication barely happens between these 2 points. So that's why the characters kind of assumed that Mikan was lying about it. Mikan could have only done it inside the hospital. I mean, this case could have happened without that information of you know, connection of being almost impossible between the venue and the hospital. That's almost unnecessary. If anything, that just kind of makes Mikan look like a dumbass for attempting such a trick like that. I kind of like feel there are certain things that make this case a little too easy to figure it out and too hard for the culprit to do their trick. And people also talk about Hyoko's murder weapon, but that's not important. That is not why this case is bad. People just kind of make jokes about, oh, how did Hyoko die? Did she die on her own age? That's not important. Most likely the murder weapon was a knife or something like along those lines. But Mikan did a really good job of hiding that, which is why the characters didn't find it. And since you didn't find it and you can't link it to the murder, there's no point in talking about it. That's really not the case why this case is bad. This case really isn't that bad. I still kind of really like 2-1 more. Nagito was, at this point, was just starting to get really annoying and repetitive. I think this was around the time where not a whole lot happened. The most interesting thing was Fuyuhiko's character development. And that was the most interesting thing to see around this time, and that's about it. That's not really related to this case. In this case, I still really like Mikan as a character and how she changed with the despair disease. Don't get me wrong. I mean, do get me wrong, because I actually kind of like this twist of, because Mikan, unlike what Danganronpa 3 and lied, or just completely think that Danganronpa 3 the animation is uncanon, not canon. Danganronpa 3 the animation probably was not written by Kodaka for the majority of it, and whoever wrote it kind of really speed ran through Danganronpa 1 and 2 probably, which is why they just didn't fully understand why certain things happened. And one of the things that I really didn't like about that anime is the fact that they said that the Danganronpa 2 group was brainwashed to be evil by the brainwashing video, which is complete bullshit. Not only does it make things uninteresting because, you know, the characters don't have their own control and they just became vegetables to essentially Juko, then at that point there's really no difference between them dying and their bodies just being used as palm pieces for Juko. But it's also straight up contradictory because Mikan here in this current state is a remnant of despair, but that doesn't mean that she is evil. That doesn't mean that she is brainwashed and that she is is just a mind puppet because of some scary internet video or something like that. No, she has her own will, and she is acting the way she is because she's obsessed with Junko, and she thinks that getting out of here might lead her to meet her beloved. She doesn't know that Junko is dead, I think. That's yeah, probably she doesn't know. She doesn't know about Junko, and she hopes that getting out of here will lead her to meet Junko. And also, her being super maniacal and stuff kind of makes a lot of sense because it is all there. Like, just because Mikano was super scared and stuff doesn't mean, if anything, usually we think that, oh, someone being a coward and being a super weak, timid, and hating kind of makes it seem that like that it's the exact opposite of someone who's super violent and super rash, which is not true. Like, Mikano was like violent. She was always violent. She was just violent towards herself, and she hated herself because other people hated her. But after a meeting with Junko and how Junko convinced her to love herself, and how Junko manipulated her to be her puppet, Mikan also became super. Probably Junko enabled Mikan to be super aggressive and told her that, hey, it's okay, you can take revenge on these people because these people shat on you. And Mikan took that to heart, and now she's completely okay with killing. The only thing that was stopping from Mikan to become a killer, a straight up serial killer, is because Mikan wanted other people to love her. That's why she wanted to appear so gullible. That's why she was so okay with falling on the ground and making herself look so submissive and breathable, because she enjoyed being the center of the attention. She enjoyed it when other people kind of paid attention to her and was attracted to her. So she was desperate for love, and Juko gave what she was looking for, and she's just doing whatever it takes to get back to Junko, and she doesn't care about anyone else. So yeah, that's a Mikan analysis that was completely retconned by Danganronpa 3. But fuck the Danganronpa 3 the anime, because that thing is retconned in my mind. So screw that. And also, yeah, there's the whole murder imitating thing. I still kind of really don't like this idea, because Danganronpa 1 used this a lot. Danganronpa 2 used this only in this case, I think. And then, why would anyone assume that a student trying to live their life and trying to survive and trying to get out would do their crime by trying to imitate certain things? If anything, it's always usually a trick. I know that Kurako is self-aware about this, and he's addressing this plot point and then later debunking this, saying that, oh, these characters wouldn't imitate these certain things. But at the same time, I think that's kind of obvious. I guess the characters in series are also kind of dumbasses for trying to stick to that. It's really hard. At the end of the day, is the whole I like this thing, really don't like this thing, because Danganronpa and largely a lot of fiction isn't bad written at all, because in real life, people are just so much dumber. If you played Among Us with random people, you realize just how much of a fucking dumbasses real people are. So it's kind of unreasonable and unfair to just demand that these characters should always be super smart and super giga brain all the time. You really shouldn't expect them to be acting like that. Yeah, I think when you go to upstairs and check out the hospital room and pull out the curtains and you investigate that, then that kind of makes it really apparent that yeah, Mikan was the one who did it. She was upstairs doing the recordings. So this case is also kind of really easy to solve. Yeah, that's also one of the things why these ranking these cases are also kind of hard and also kind of unfair to the point, because certain cases are easy, but you can't just fault these cases for being easy, right? You kind of have to like put a lot of different aspects into considerations. Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird thing going on here. Like Hajime entered this, he saw Ibuki's body, he went out. Mikage entered here after Hajime, pulled the stuffing down, created a locked room, put the gel and then like put the trash in here. Like it will it's a little bit more plausible if you consider that okay, maybe he can hide the camera, broken camera inside the venue, and then after Hajime left, she might have done that. And maybe after that, it's a little bit plausible, but it's too fast for her. But overall, this case is fine. I still also kind of desperately need to rewatch this case because I'm still really not sure about that plot hole. This case is amazing. It really is. Probably in S tier. Yeah, it's S tier, S tier. It has to be. First of all, Nagito was super interesting during this case. I think in chapter 3 was kind of like the peak of annoying Nagito, where his shtick was kind of getting old. He really didn't know what else to do. Like Kodoka didn't really know. I mean, he knew what he was supposed to do. I think Nagito was just kind of stuck in this instance of like not changing and just hoping that the murders will be interesting and stuff and so on. But I think in chapter 4 it really became really interesting. And after he also learned about how everyone was a remnant of despair, he became such an egoistic bastard and just blamed everyone and like asked everyone to just lick his shoes. And I love every second of it because that's the thing. Usually when assholes like Nagito get over their learns that other people were bigger assholes or bigger failures than them, he doesn't just, become a good guy suddenly. No, he has so much hatred and so much ego and so much negative energy, and he has to let that all out on other people. He used to let it all out on himself because he appreciated and thought that other people were better than him and that other people deserved better than him. But when he had an excuse to shit on other people, he started shitting on other people so much to the point like people just don't become amazing person as soon as they realize that the other person were a worse person. If anything, it kind of gave an excuse for Nagito to act even more of a bastard than he already was. And also Sonya and Gundam were super cute here. I think Gundam also did a really great job of acting. And yeah, he kind of like had to ask certain questions. And in hindsight, it's kind of obvious that Gundam was being super aggressive and stuff. But when you're in the mood, you kind of like, oh, look at Gundam and Sonya flirting with one another. It's so cute. And you almost like overlook the fact that Gundam is being super aggressive and super defensive and super trying to debunk your fears, especially when you're on the right track. So the longer the trial goes on, you kind of realize that Gundam was kind of trying to bullshit you, and you also kind of like, if you kind of like have a good memory, then you will soon realize that, oh wait, Gundam, every time everyone goes on a correct fury and tries to furious the correct fury, Gundam tries to refute that. That's kind of sus. And yeah, there's also like super interesting stuff. The fun house is truly a fun house. No wonder Monokuma kidnapped them and put them there. Yeah, it kind of sucks that they were trying to that they were starving to death, but the fun house is truly fun. And I really don't want to encourage murders and stuff, but hey, I mean, it was a fun murder. What can you say? Yeah, it's still like arguably the funnest one. I think I think this is kind of a controversial take maybe, but I like this case more than the 5th case. I really do love this case. I think Gundam's like, yeah, it kind of sucks that Monokuma forced them to eat at one another, but at the same time, I kind of really like that because it fits Gundam and the Nekomaru's characters, Because if Monokuma didn't force them into such a hard situation, then Gundam and Nekomaru wouldn't have committed those murders. It's really hard to call this a murder. It's more like a sacrifice, you know. Gundam like had no other choice, and even after people figured out his truth, he just kind of like tries to play the villain so that they wouldn't feel bad. I kind of really love Gundam because of that. He's such a cool guy, and I think there was such a bastard in this. And I also really enjoy how smart he is and how level-headed he is in the case 4. It's so cool. And I also really love the Zero Escape homage in this chapter as well. The elevator doing a 180 and going around the entire building, such a cool, unique design. I was super blown away by that as a kid. If I try to play a case that has a similar twist to this, then I probably would guess it now. But at that time, I really didn't know something like that was possible. And I still hold a really big appreciation for it. And also, rebattling with Gundam, Sonya, and Kazuichi was super fun. Rebattles were super fun in this case. And also, yeah, the murder trick is also really cool. People have a certain counter-arguments as to, why did Nekomaru die despite tanking the blast from Monokuma? And my explanation is that, well, you don't know how strong the attack was. And besides, it actually wasn't a bomb, it was more similar to a laser. And it could be just that Nekomaru's male body was resistant to laser, but it wasn't really great against fall damage. It's still gonna hurt really bad when you hit your head on a pillar like that. And at the end of the day, inside the head, inside the male body, is still Nekomaru's head, and he fell on his head on the pillar. It's still like debatable whether Nekomaru will survive that, and I think him kind of not surviving it and dying on it makes sense. It really makes sense, I think. Yeah, there is certain counter arguments, but it's still acceptable. Come on, stop complaining, I guess. The evidence that actually points to Gundam is also kind of substantial, but it works out. It works out really well. And if you're really super smart, you could figure that out very early on, because Gundam was supposed to be in a super deluxe room, but he was out and hurt when Fuyuhiko found the clock. And from that, you can really easily deduce that Gundam might have been the culprit. But there are certain issues. Like, you might think that maybe at the time when the crashing sound happened, maybe you might theorize that, maybe the culprit is right there when the crashing sound happened. The hammer is nice red herring. I kind of wish the Gundam managed to put more blood on, because he could like actually hit Mikomaru's body. But I guess the problem with that is that he might put oil on his clothes. That's probably why he didn't do that. But he could like put the top of the hammer on the blood. The problem with them neglecting the hammer is immediately neglecting the hammer is because it was super clean. So that's kind of like odd. Yeah, and also Gundam using his hamsters to reach Nekomaru's back. That's kind of cool. It's a cool little detail. This case is so cool. I still think it's also like generally kind of hard too. Like, yes, the problem with a lot of case 4s and case 5s is that there are way too few suspects to the point that it's kind of like easy to point a finger towards someone. Like, yes, there is a possibility that you might think Fuyuhiko is the culprit. Like, I think Nikobe thought that Fuyuhiko was the culprit. I think that was he actually didn't have a suspect in mind. I think he was going towards Akane first and towards Fuyuhiko. I think he actually did not figure it out that Gundam was it. So that's really funny. And I think Lukachi, what did Lukachi think? What's the answer, Kazuchi? I think she actually might have thought it was Gundam or something. I think Lukachi might have actually thought it was Akane. Maybe. So yeah, this is a hard case, despite the fact that this is a 4th case and the suspect number is super low. Yeah, I have nothing else to say. That I love everything about it. I love Gundam's speech about loving yourself and fighting to live. Animals eat one another to survive, and I think appreciate suicide is the coward's way out. It's okay to fight in order to survive. That was it was an important message. But at the same time, just because of that doesn't mean that it doesn't the greatest of answers. I think Shuichi and Gundam's own differences kind of shows, like especially during chapter 6 of V3. I think that really because even if Tsumugi was just cosplaying as Gundam, he kind of cosplay Gundam's mentality being mentioned, it kind of like made me realize that, hey, Gundam, despite saying all that stuff and despite it seemingly might seem true, it also might not be the most right option. Sure, and at the end of the day, people like Shuichi might disagree. And as for case 5, it is super hard. I kind of really obviously figured out that this was a suicide. And okay, I didn't realize that Nagito was using his luck to do some bullcrap, but that's kind of hard to figure out on its own. So yeah, I'm not really like blaming myself for not figuring that out, but I kind of did figure out that Nagito put the dominoes there to make it look like a suicide. Yeah, it kind of seems like it was obvious that it was the case, so that's probably why I'm not that super into it. But at the same time, I kind of appreciate the creativity, my guy. You did a really good job of finding a creative way to kill yourself, Nagito. Yeah, this is a neat little trick. You like put the handle inside the teddy bear and slam his hand into it, and then threw the plush away. That's super smart, I guess. Yeah, it's also kind of contrived, right? Like, why did the characters like decide to put out this fire? Game Grumps watched this and they just also pointed this out. I kind of really don't like that aspect of this case, like how the characters like thought it was necessary to turn the fire off. It's Monokuma's business, and they're also like teenagers. It's kind of like dangerous to go into the fire. You might inhale a lot of smoke. You might get caught in the fire. It's also kind of like dangerous. So yeah, in order for this, so I guess Nagito's luck just sort of brainwashed the characters into doing that. Yeah, it's a little bit convenient. But stories have conveniences. Like this cool trick of using your luck and making it impossible to figure out crime wouldn't have happened without this big brain play. And I also kind of really don't. I'm sorry if I complain too much, but I also kind of really am not a big, huge fan of how there's a blood here. Like, this blood doesn't even make sense to be here, because I really don't think that physically when the blood splatters on, like, sure, he was stabbing himself and there was blood on the vines, but when Nagato lets go of the spear, then I really don't think there will be a smudge this big on the railings. That is super weird. I think just admitting that the existence of the railing is fine and that's it, like that alone would have been like a hint on its own. You don't need like super solid fact that evidence that the smudge just happened. Like, this just exists to make it seem like the characters have a solid evidence to go by that Nagito used the spear in the way they think Nagito used the spear. But real life is not like that. In real life, you have to take guesses, and it's okay for characters to take guesses because, surprise, surprise, real detectives always have to take guesses like this because usually you don't always have this amazingly detailed evidence left by the culprit. Don't like this, and he does that. Kuroko kind of does that in V3 too. He kind of tries to create this super sure, airtight evidences that can't be disputed, that the characters wouldn't wiggle-woggle on. But that's really not the case. Usually when the characters, realistically what happens is that the people do take guesses a lot of the times, which is also why in real life trying to figure out a person's motive for killing is really important, because at the end of the day, a lot of it is guesswork. And let's say you had three suspects and all three people could have committed the crime, then at that point, the only thing that's making a difference is those people's personality and their motive. People would have to take chances, and real detectives do take chances in trying to guess. And Nagito has a lot of motive for doing the things he does. So when you figure his motive out, it's kind of easy to just guess that he used the spirit of Gangneers like that by wrapping it around and putting it near the ceiling, and wrapping the wine around his arm and grabbing it. It's kind of easy to figure that out. At least guess that's the thing. You don't need concrete evidence that that's the thing that exactly happened, because that's the only thing that's kind of makes sense. He definitely could have chosen a different room to do his epic suicide plan, within a room that has different entrances, maybe. But if that was the case, maybe an exit would have helped, I guess, maybe. But it's fine. Nagito's plan is still kind of cool, and it still makes sense for him to try and do this. There's still so many things off about his death, off about the notion that he was tortured. The blood around his arms is such a huge hint. It was so clearly that he was holding onto gripping something in his hands, and the blood splattered around his hand. And that is arguably the biggest and most important evidence. Yeah, the Trinity twist is fine. I kind of really don't like the fact that Chiaki just goes to the machine and just registers her own ID. It's kind of weird. Yeah, it was a troll, but I think Chiaki just sort of outs herself like that as the traitor. And it's also kind of weird that the characters never talk about it. But it kind of this is not really a character problem. It's more so to the fact that, it's a murder mystery and you kind of want things to be hard to solve. But it's fine. It's still, people usually have a tendency to overthink things, especially after case 4. So case 5 being super simplistic in certain ways and super straightforward in certain ways, it's kind of, a twist of itself. Debunking theories and stuff. It's cool. It's super cool. And case 6 is, I still am not going to put it on S, because S, there are a few cases in Danganronpa that's truly S worthy. The 6th case of Danganronpa 2 is quite good. It's actually, I really enjoyed it. I think the Remnant of Despair twist is super cool. I think Makoto, even if it's technically just a case where you don't really solve a lot of murder mysteries, you just have a lot of shit, a lot of plot twists thrown at your face. It's still really cool because you get to have this fake out, the fake Makoto coming in, the observer, and the plot twists. The characters kind of realizing coming into terms with the plot twist also makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, there's also certain mysteries surrounding the Future Foundation, but I think after learning that Chiaki was with the Future Foundation, people kind of forgive the Future Foundation. So yeah, there's also a lot of mysteries to unravel here, and I really like that because with Danganronpa 1, the mystery is kind of obvious. It also was super foreshadowed from an early time. But with Danganronpa 2, these mysteries are still really fresh. It's still possible to guess it. It's not impossible, but I really like it. And I also think the virtual world rules are super interesting and also make sense. Kotaka definitely made it so that Monokuma just didn't have full wine under control. There's actually, if you rewatch it, there's actually rules to the virtual world, and Monokuma has to follow it. He can't attack the students directly. He didn't just take the entire program. He actually just changed it so that Monokuma virus takes the role of the teacher. That's how he was able to do that. He actually lacked the ability to hurt the students directly. I mean, it's still kind of wishy-washy, kind of weird. In case 4, he kind of indirectly hurt them by forcing them to not be able to eat. That's kind of ass. It kind of just begs the question, why didn't Monokuma just do that sooner? If he really cared about his goals. So using 11037 is kind of hype, not gonna lie. I also almost think that using that as an evidence is almost better than the actual original usage of that. But no, it's still both are still really cool. I really enjoyed it. I actually have a lot to talk about V3 because I replayed this game the most. I love this game arguably the most. I still really love Danganronpa 2, and I still enjoy Danganronpa 1. I still really love V3. It's my favorite Danganronpa game to date, and this first case was amazing. I really love complex first cases because in a div game you have 16 characters, and the more characters you have, the more complex your cases are going to be. So it just naturally makes sense to use these characters and create a murder mystery that is super complex on the first trial. Because I think this mentality of having the first case be super easy kind of ruined the first case of Danganronpa a lot. And it also kind of affected the second case, the first case of Danganronpa 2 a lot too. Whereas in V3 1, they just went all out. And like I said, first impression is very important. I think in V3 he just didn't have this dogma of, oh, this is the first case, no need to go hard on this. Oh, this is just the mid case, no need to go hard on this. No, Kotaka was going all in on every single case, and I love it. I love it. Every single case in V3 is so well made. There are things that I like dislike, I guess, but at the end of the day, it's very creative. It's very fun, and that's also very long too. Like due to a lot of cases being more complex, and also a lot of red herrings and the characters going on a tangent and going on making wrong theories a lot, especially in case 2 that happens. Because of that, the length of these trials just increased so much. Like even in this case, like sure the right answer is one thing, but there are so many alternative answers, and trying to debunk these alternative theories is it takes a lot of time. But I really enjoyed. This is also why people need to throw away this idea of, oh, I only need to find out the truth, and only the real answer to the mystery is what matters. People kind of like don't really need to think that, because I think a lot of the enjoyment of the cases also comes from the fact that there are so many alternative thought routes to these mysteries, and there's a lot to like about it. Yes, there is a disadvantage of the cases going on for too long, make the cases too complex, and have too many alternative routes. It actually made it really hard for Kaita to do her own crime. She was building up all this stuff with Shuichi, and there's a camera everywhere, so she can't just go there and kill the culprit. She has to create this contraption to hit the mastermind. And I also really am glad the fact that it failed. And certain people who furious and did the calculations for the physics and realized that, hey, it doesn't make any sense for this plan to work, and it kind of doesn't work. The fact that it doesn't work is just so well made. Kind of really dumb that Shuichi didn't figure it out, but you can't really blame a lot of people. This just kind of goes to showcase how there are so much differences between people's intelligence. Because I saw on the internet of comments in chapter 1, I read on the subreddit of a lot of people's comments on the Danganronpa subreddit a lot, and some people actually complained that Shuichi is kind of an idiot for not figuring this out. You can't blame them. Maybe you're just too smart, Maybe you're just really good at physics and stuff like that, to the point that you kind of calculate the weight and the height of the bookcase and just calculate how much force it will generate. And if you do the calculations and the research, then you kind of realize that, oh, well, that actually doesn't make sense for the contraption to have killed Rantaro. And yeah, that's true. But you also can't blame any of these because none of them here are physicians, mathematics, and even if they are, you kind of need a lot of different information and research values. Like none of these characters have a surefire way to access the internet. You know, if anything, the fact that Mew can invent all that stuff is really impressive. And Mew could have definitely helped because she knew about physics and stuff, probably the most. So she could have like did certain calculations and realized that hey, wait a minute, the contraption doesn't make sense to hit Rantaro and hurt and have killed him. But chances are Mew probably doesn't know about how much force takes it to kill a person. She probably doesn't know that knowledge. She also probably doesn't know certain things, other things as well. The weight of the shot put ball probably. And yeah, I mean she's also a very clumsy person. She's not the brightest. She's also like super egoistic, and people are not thorough at all. They're either very lazy or they just assume that they're going to have the answer handed to them on a silver platter. That's also why Muse just super gung ho about jumping to conclusions. And Shuichi was also super emotional and super depressed. That he also didn't double check. Yeah, Kokichi is also very egoistic. He's also very careless. And the others are, well, not that smart, to be honest. Honestly, Korikyo could definitely have said some things, but his expertise is not killing people. His expertise is not knowing the weight of a shot put ball. The majority of people who played it actually did not guess this at all, and they never theorized about the fact that Kaeda's contraption should have failed. Very few people actually talked about that. Those few people are kind of smart, and I love the alternative routes to it. There's the real route of Tsumugi's killing that could have happened that Angie mentioned, but unfortunately Shuichi kind of debunks that, and they also couldn't have nobody like made a theory of the mastermind using a hidden room. Because that's possible. They don't have any evidence for it, but it's hypothetically possible. Nobody really thought of that theory. Nobody was smart enough to it. And I'm not trying to like. This is not a question of good writing or bad writing. It's just how it is, and it makes sense that the average person, even if they're super talented and stuff, makes sense that they don't know about it. There's also the fact that, well, there's so many good alternative routes. There's also the alternative route of Ryoma going towards down inside the vents and then shot put balling Rantaro from there. It kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there's no way for Ryoma to get out. Ryoma could have needed to go out through the front door and enter the library through there. He kind of can't crawl back through the ventilation without sliding down. But it would be kind of cool for the characters to at least mention that theory, maybe. The Gonto theory is so cool. Like Gonto opening the door of the projector and then throwing the shot put ball through the open door. It's such a cool theory, but there's a reason for why it's debunked. That's such a cool theory. I love it. And Shuichi is such a great red herring, and I really, really appreciate the narration that Kaeda has because she's always substitutes the culprit for the mastermind. And she says, "I'm going to catch the mastermind," and blah blah blah, mastermind, mastermind. She never thinks about the culprit because she is the culprit. That kind of makes sense. There are certain narrations that sort of tries to contradict it, but it's fine. But yeah, I think it's just selective showing, right? Like there's certain. I mean, narration in general is kind of weird because our thoughts really isn't our own thoughts. Thoughts aren't actually real. This first-person narration actually isn't real at all because nobody actually narrates anything to themselves, which is also why I kind of really love movies more than like sometimes books because books have narrations and narrations are kind of false because by and large it's kind of not how real life exists. That's not really realistic. Whereas in this instance, Kaita has first narration, and she mostly has first narration because every other protagonist had a first narration, and generally it's good for the uh, mystery story main characters to have first person narrations. Kaito always going on and on about and trying to figure out the truth. Kind of blends really well with her motto, which is trying to find the mastermind. So it kind of like creates this nice camouflage for Kaide being the culprit. Yeah, I love this twist. It's so well done. The writing is so well done. I replayed chapter 1 a lot. I watched a lot of people do a let's play of this game a lot, maybe more than I have should have, and I really can't talk more about how much I love this game, and I especially love this case of how Kaide's narration was done, how Shuichi realizes the truth midpoint in the trial and he just goes silent. It is beautiful. It kind of makes Shuichi looks a bit suspicious. Maybe he's trying to be silent because he's the culprit, but no, that's not the case. He realized something, that's why he became silent. The suspect list also kind of like jumps to Mew. Like there are so many alternative ways to think about it. Like there's certain people theorize that Mew was the one who created used the drone to lift the ball and throw it onto Rentaro's hand. I kind of really don't like the aspect of Mew having taken the picture and then not looking at it at all. I really don't like that. It kind of like makes me think that why didn't Mew just take the picture and not look at it at all? That's kind of dumb. Like Mew's kind of a dumb bitch, but at the same time, like, come on, girl, like, why didn't you look at it or show it to anyone else? I almost would have preferred if if the characters asked Monokuma to take a picture of the library and Monokuma just like, sure, I'll take a picture and then just show it. It's not that unfair, and unless you ask for it, you don't really get it. There's even a possibility that the character's crew just requested Monokuma to investigate the library again themselves, which again probably made it so that Shuichi could have thrown the shot ball into the vent and made it roll and test it out to see if it would actually hit Rantaro. That's probably why Kodaka didn't do it that way. I saw this case also has this weird thing where everyone looked at the picture of Rantaro being flashed, but nobody said anything, and the flash was triggered, but it almost looked like a art style thing. I was really unsure about that. But there was a comparison between Shuichi's picture and Rantaro's picture, and Rantaro was definitely a little bit away from the camera, whereas Shuichi was so close. But yeah, you can see the flash a little bit. So in that sense, it's actually kind of good. It's actually kind of really impressive. I'm not trying to complain at all. It's actually kind of impressive how Kodaka actually managed to make that picture in a way that it's not super unnoticeable, but it's not super noticeable either. Because there's a better version of Danganronpa V3. I think Kodaka talked about it. There's maybe a certain documentation of it where Rantaro's picture originally had a super big flash, and it was super obvious that the flash was fucking things up, and it was super obvious that a flash was used, and that probably had a potential to ruin the twist. But the flash in the game right now is like right perfect. It's almost perfect. It's exactly perfect. Whereas it's not too. You can't say that there isn't any flash. If someone says, "Oh, there's a flashbang," you think, "Oh, that makes sense." But then if someone says, "Oh, but there's a possibility that someone would completely ignore this flash and think that, yeah, it's not realistic. Yeah, there's probably not. There's not a flash there. It's just an art style thing. People could very well mistake it for an art style thing." And also one of the biggest advantages that this case has is the fact that Kaede commits her crime way before the trial starts. Like all of the setup is done before the trial, and it definitely makes it possible to guess that Kaede is the culprit way before the trial starts. I mean, Nico B was able to guess that Kaede was the culprit exactly because of that. But for the most part, it also makes it really, really hard to suspect Kaede. Like, you might suspect Kaede really, really deep into the trial when Kaede keeps ravaging on about the mastermind and how about that and how she's like, even if it kills me or something like that, like she's super afraid and she's super dead set about sacrificing herself. You might think that, oh, maybe she might have done that. I mean, you might think there's something up. Yeah, I think this case doesn't like hold the same value of where certain cases where the longer you get into the trial, the more of chances you might figure things out. But overall, this is a very great case, a very hard case too. Like, yeah, there are some instances where super smart guys like Nico B kind of figures things out, but stuff like that usually happens, and it's not, at the same time it's kind of like not a matter of someone being smart or someone being dumb, right? It's a matter of how someone's thought process works. Because people like Nico B has a really meta knowledge of trying to guess what Kodaka is trying to do instead of trying to just figure out the story through regular means. Whereas a lot of list players play it in a way that they try to piece things by self-inserting themselves into the story and not use any meta logic and try to use real life logic to deduce things. Whereas a lot of certain list players and people who are super into murder mystery writing kind of try to guess things through metagaming, trying to metagame how this author will do this thing, so therefore they will something like this will happen. But I mean, it also kind of goes to show that Nico B also was super aware of the possibility that Kotaku will attempt to write a case where the main character is the culprit. It's possible to do that. Yeah, this case is amazing. I love it. I love it so much. The fact that it gets recalled in the last case and there's a hidden layer behind it just goes to show how hard Kotaku went hard on this. S tier, best case in the entire fucking series, probably, possibly. Yeah, Kotaku even said the arguably is the hardest case to write, and it took the most amount of time to write. It really shows. It really freaking shows. This case is really great as well. I know it's probably the weakest case in Danganronpa V3. Probably a lot of people seem to hate the third case. I love the third case. People who hate the third case like can suck my donkey think. Okay, like I know I hyped up the first case a lot, but first case is really complicated and complex in the way that it has different alternative routes. Whereas with We're Free, the way the culprit did their case is super impressive. Like it's super big brain. Like We're Free has the first chapter has a lot of alternative routes of logic and alternative methods the culprit could have taken and other people could have taken. Whereas with the third case, the culprit took a certain method, and that method is super big brain. It's mega giga big brain, and it's super creative, and it's super frustrating because you kind of have had a feeling that Korekyo has so much control over it. It's still really hard to have a solid evidence about this. I really hate how Danganronpa fans just immediately think that, oh, this case is trash, this case is useless, as soon as they think that the culprit is easy to guess. Like, I almost kind of appreciate Ace Attorney for spoiling their culprits, especially because it kind of negates the possibility of the players going like super elitist and think that this case is trash simply because they figured out the truth. which is really not the case. That's really not how the appeal of a lot of cases goes, in my opinion. I think debunking a lot of theories and is really fun. Debunking, finding out a lot of lies is also really fun. But at the same time, trying to find lies, it kind of like requires a lot of people to just be a super big liars and be a super giant assholes in order for this to work. People just kind of need to be pathological liars for them to work. But I kind of really enjoyed that aspect of Ace Attorney. I really wish there was a Danganronpa new game, or maybe in that Raincoat detective game, where there are like pathological liars everywhere. Like the suspects just keep lying out of their ass. That'll be kind of cool, I guess. And this underwater magic trick. Okay, going to case 2. This underwater magic trick is kind of cool. I still think it's a little bit easy to guess. As soon as you see the door in the staircase, it kind of becomes easy. It's kind of easy, honestly. And Kirumi kind of makes the mistake of trying to pin the blame on Himiko and overcomplicates her crime. But at the same time, without people overcomplicating their crimes, cases aren't as fun to solve, unfortunately. But at the same time, I also think it's possible to create the complex cases without characters like Kirumi acting like dumbasses. But at the same time, characters acting like dumbasses is completely fine, because people in real life are really dumbass. There are a lot of people who just feel paranoid about leaving things as they are, kind of like try to pin things on other people. I mean, Kirumi, there are a lot of people who just overdo things because they were paranoid about getting caught or something. Yeah, it's kind of dumb, but whatever. It's kind of really smart, but also really dumb. But that's just how egoists work, right? People just refuse to go out and do a simple crime. They just want to 100% certain that other people will have someone to blame for the murder, so they overcomplicate their crimes and then they get caught. I think this case also has a bad rap in the sense that it has a completely useless cross-out section where the characters go out and try to cross out each person, but it becomes moot when you realize that the murder happened during midnight, after the gym was closed. But it's still kind of educational. It kind of doesn't amount to anything. It almost goes on a little bit of tangent, and it makes this case super long, unnecessarily long. But it's fine. I mean, for Jesus Christ, this fucking trial is 3 hours long. Can you believe it? Like the fifth trial in case 1 was like 1 hour long. This case is like 3 hours long. But this case is also quite complicated. There are also really odd things about this case too, specifically how Kirumi's glove tears off, but the part that tore off was so fucking huge. Like, how does a glove tear off that big? I mean, I guess it's possible for a glove to tear off like that, but most of the time when a glove tears off, it's just going to throw out so little parts in the air, and those parts are just not going to be visible in the eye. But I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. I guess it's possible for it to tear out like that. Yeah, like someone really need to do the physics on that. Like seriously, someone need to do a math quiz and like figure out that it's possible or not. Yeah, like certain people had an idea to do a certain like experiment to test if like the seesaw effect is possible or not. Because this isn't just like murder or stuff like that. This is just pure scientific physics. Is it physically possible to do something like that? It's kind of cool in that sense. The rope trick is kind of really cute. It's really cool. I still think that there's a certain kind of bullshit where Kodaka did do a certain thing where, I mean, it's not really bullshit. I'm sorry, it's not actually that bullshit, because I was trying to say that the metal railings on the window, the metal things on the window, they had scratches on them, and I was trying to say that doesn't make sense, but it also kind of makes sense because the metal scratches that happened on Ryoma's window happened because it happened when Kuruma went down on the ropeway, bent because of Kurumi, and when Kurumi stood on the tube and tried to throw Ryoma's body into the pool, then that caused the other that caused the bend on the other metal on the other window. The window of the gym got bent a little bit on its metal. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. This piranha tank trick is so fucking cool. I love it. They did a really good job of hiding Ryoma's body. It's super smart. It kind of fits Kurumi, and also I think Kurumi is such a big egoistic bastard. Kurumi truly is overworking. It kind of almost makes sense for Kurumi to do such a dumb thing, because yes, it is dumb to overcomplicate your murder method, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense for Kurumi to do that. She's an over egoistic maid who became even more over egoistic when she realized that she's the leader of Japan. You know, I'm the leader of Japan. I can't just do a simple hit and run away case like this. I have to make this super complicated, and I have to trick everyone into making them fall into my super big brain plan. That's that's why Kurumi is like so overconfident. She even lets other people like suspect her. It kind of goes to show how well her acting abilities are, but it also goes to show just how much of a fucking overconfident piece of shit Kurumi is. I love her. She is so sexy, but she is so fucking egotistical. She is so overconfident and she's so arrogant. I love her. And yeah, I think Kokichi was kind of like, he's kind of addicted to the crossing out suspects, because he like Kokichi's like process of elimination. I'm so smart. No, you're not. If anything, process of elimination is, in my opinion, the most bare bones easiest method that cops use when they ran out of ideas. When the hardest thing to do is trying to figure out the culprit's footsteps and their motives and the complexity of their methods. I think that's actually really hardest to think to understand. And this is also kind of goes into case 5 too, where Kaito does a really complicated murder. Kaito goes against his friends and acts out as Kokichi, and in that entire case hinges on the fact that people not realizing what Kaito's motive is here. Kaito's motive is so hard to figure out that it's kind of like hard figure out. Like the entire case is hinging on the fact that if Kaito was inside the XSL, he will never do something like that. Like the entire thing like hinges on that aspect. Kaito is such a big bro, he'll never toy with Maki's heart, or he'll betray Shuichi like that. He will not do that. Therefore he's not inside the XSL. That's kind of like the logic how the people who are trying to solve this mystery, Shuichi thinks like that, Maki thinks like that, and the player who is doing a let's play of case 5 thinks like that. So in that sense, trying to figure out those person's motives is really important, and it's really hard to do, and it requires a huge amount of skill on the player, on the detective, and trying to figure out the complex murder like the secret of the fun house, and even here like the ropeway trick and Himiko's trick. Those things require skill to figure out. I mean, Himiko's kind of becomes really obvious when you see the water puddle and the door. It's kind of really easy to figure it out afterwards. But ropeway is decently hard in my opinion. But there are also things I don't like about this case, specifically how Kadaka overtuned things again and made things illogical. Like in my opinion, things making sense is utmost importance. If you shouldn't like overthrow logic and try to bend things make your case hard to solve. You also shouldn't, in my opinion, overtune things so that your case also becomes too easy to solve, or so that certain evidences could be made so that the characters could point things out. That's kind of really, unfortunately, one of the biggest issues of Kodaka's writing, in my opinion. Kodaka just refuses to admit that, hey, sometimes culprits leave out no evidences, and detectives have to take chances and take guesses. Because in real life, people have to take guesses. And there's a certain portion in this case where Kirumi grabs a handcuff from the wall, and also, yeah, like they already figured out that Ryoma drowned in the prison sink, and in order for to establish the crime scene, Ryoma scratched the sink with his cuffs, and I don't think that's physically makes sense, because if you do the physics, like Ryoma like struggling, yeah, I'm sure even if Ryoma like volunteered to get killed by Kirumi, he will struggle when he's like he will have second thoughts when he's drawing in to death. Obviously, he's going to struggle, but first of all, Ryoma's arms are super short. So when Ryoma is being drowned, I think his arms actually will be inside the sink. So it doesn't even make sense for Ryoma to scratch the sink like that. Second of all, literally, it doesn't make sense for Ryoma to be that strong, or like the side of the handcuffs making that scratches. It really doesn't make sense in my opinion. Like someone need to do the physics, I think. But I really am confident. Like, I learned physics in my in the element in my school, and I kind of know that it's kind of bullshit. There's also the really weird thing where Kirumi grabs the handcuff, and the one of the bolts kind of like get out. Like I guess it kind of made sense that the bolt will get out like that if it's like super old, but at the same time, it's a bolt. Like yeah, I mean it's a little bit convenient, but whatever. But I mean, was the wall even that like old? Well, because like Kirumi, someone as slender as Kirumi interacting with the bolt and the handcuff like that, causing for the bolt to just sprung out like that, just doesn't make sense in my opinion. At best, it's kind of like convenient. At worst, it's kind of bullshit. Yeah, I'm not a really big huge fan of that, and you really don't need for solid evidence because the crime scene is pretty obvious, right? Because no, like the bolt falling off like that is super convenient, and the scratch have making a scratch on the sink. Ryoma making a scratch on the sink like that is also like not realistic, and also probably doesn't even make any physical sense. So yeah, I think Kotaka is kind of trying to overtune these things so that you will have super evidences. I'm really not a big fan of that, but at the same time, it's not a big deal, you know. Yeah, I think you just have to uh, live with the fact that our detectives are taking guesses, because that's how real detectives function. Also, overall, I really like this case. I really liked how it improved. It furthered Shuichi's character development in the sense that Shuichi is now facing the truth against Kirumi, and Kirumi is like a mother figure to the group. And there's a lot of people who Kirumi was also like not backing down. She was visceral. I love how petty fucking Kirumi is. She like runs out and tries to escape, and even tries to like put him, force the sort of like guilt trip into taking her place and to be executed. She votes for Shuichi in the voting time, and that's super hilarious. I love that. And you know, Kirumi also like fought well. She was really like struggled. She struggled hard well. And she was also really good at acting. I think Kirumi acted really well. I think she's definitely I think she acted a little bit better than Peko did. I think there's a lot of comparison between Peko and Kirumi. I think some people even figured out Kirumi was the culprit entirely because she was so similar to Peko. That's hilarious. Yeah, sometimes you know as an author you kind of self-plagiarize yourself, and as a mystery writer, you really should try to avoid self-plagiarizing. It's really there's really no point in doing something if you over and over again. I don't think V3 like copies Danganronpa 2 and 1 too much, but he also kind of self-plagiarizes a bit. I think that's the worst aspect of V3. It really does self-plagiarize itself on certain occasions. Unfortunately, there's a certain obsession that Kodaka has. He just kind of refuses to let go, and he just did brought three games that have similar themes to one another over and over again. At the same time, it kind of goes to show that Kadoko's own obsessions, you know, he kind of wanted to experience these types of stories, a theme about truth and lies, about fiction and reality, about the fourth wall breakings and stuff. And I'm gonna put it probably around here. Yeah, I think this is perfect. This is the weakest V3 case, by the way. I think I talked about chapter 3 a lot. So man, this mannequin trick is so fucking cool. This trick is so cool, but unfortunately it doesn't really relate to the culprit. It only just goes to explain how the culprit locked the door. It doesn't really relate to who's the culprit, but it's still such a smart... Kuroki is such a smart dude, and Kadoka is such a cool guy for figuring out and planning this super cool trick for Kuroki to use. Because Kuroki is such a smart guy, and I really love the fact that Kuroki did such a complex, egoistic trick. But on one hand, it's super smart, but on the other hand, it's super egotistical because they just couldn't do a like a runaway case. No, they couldn't just put the body there, check to see if they left any evidences or something, and then just run away. No, they have to create a locked room mystery. They have to do some crazy shenanigans. Like Kuroki is so hardworking and so egotistical, and like sure, the sword thing might have been like unnecessary or whatever, but the seesaw effect is also unnecessary. But the difference between like V2 and the second case and the fourth case is that Kuroki straight up admits that he didn't want the seesaw trick to be wasted. He is super into his craft. He doesn't give a crap about him being caught as the culprit. He just wants to do the cool seesaw trick. He loves the seesaw trick a lot. And he just really wants to kill Tenko and do whatever, and bring Tenko to her sister. It's kind of stupid. I don't think it actually works out. He's deluding himself into thinking that that's actually going to work. I really don't think he's actually communicating with the dead. Maybe he's still suffering from certain psychological issues. He's part of probably deluding himself. That doesn't change the fact that my dude is really smart and his seesaw trick is super clever. He has a lot of flaws, but his brain is still functioning. He's still a really super creative and smart, knowledgeable guy, but it doesn't make him be the most wisest or to be the most consciously awake person. And yeah, the seesaw trick is so amazing, dude. Like, I was trying to solve this mystery. I had a hunch that Korikyo was the one who was behind all this. So I actually thought that the dog statue had a hidden entrance to it. So I thought that, okay, under this dog statue, there's probably a knife. So what the Korikyo did do is he probably put this on here, and then the dog statue probably stabbed through Tenko with its inner contraption and probably killed Tenko. But then I realized that theory immediately went out the window as soon as I found out that the blanket had no cut inside it. Oh damn, that's hard. That line goes hard. Yeah, I think Kurokyo is like so much eating with so much bullshit. Like even in hindsight, if you watch this video, Korokyo is acting so strangely. Like he is mocking everyone by saying that the CN, like he's not even like concerned about Tengo's death or something like that. He's just like, oh, the CNs doesn't work. Oh, wonder what kind of an asshole did this to poor Tenko. He is like giving so much bullshit. And yeah, there's so many like alternative ways to think about this, because that's one of my theories. Then the other theory I had was, okay, maybe Kurokyo had a sickle and he went into towards Tenko during the song and he stabbed the sickle. I thought that the sickle stabbing was maybe going to work, but the inches doesn't work. Like the sickle is just too short. And I said, God damn, maybe the sickle, this may be a hidden secret to the sickle, and maybe it goes gets long with certain contraptions or something. Then I thought, okay, that theory is stupid. Maybe Gonto went under the floorboards. Maybe he lifted the floorboards up, and he stabbed Tenko through the sickle, because Gonto is the only one who's strong enough to lift Tenko's body. I was still really off about that theory. I really doubted that theory, because Tenko should have screamed if someone literally lifted the floorboard under her. And it took Gonto a lot of time to just navigate to Tenko and hit her like that. And also Gonto can see in the dark. Like I thought that maybe a candle will be fine, but then the light definitely would have been visible. I kind of was coping on that. Maybe the wouldn't be seen, guys. Maybe the light source is way too away from the hole in the room. But I was absolutely coping. I was coping so hard, because there's no way if it's pure pitch black, even a little bit of a light source like a candle would be visible. I think Gonto himself also really mentioned this theory, because someone could like really open this cage really fast and hit the Tenko and put it back. But that's really fucking dumb. It doesn't make sense. Like my fucking head was exploding during this trial. I was like, how does any of this make sense? Does anyone in this fucking trial, like, did Himiko use magic to teleport into the into the cage and murder Tenko? Was that the real reason? Was magic real? I was like scratching my head so badly during this trial. Yeah, it's really hard to figure out. My mind was like completely going blank on this, because I was trying to show you guys the trial, what happened, but showing the trial is not the important part. Like, because every single clue you need to solve this murder is entirely available to you in this case. I almost think that watching Let's Plays of Case 3 is so interesting, because you can clearly see who's smart and who's not that smart, okay? Like, my mind was going completely blank when I saw this. I was like, I really I really don't understand anything, so let's just go on. My mind was completely pulling a blank when I saw this. Okay, I think they might have used this to hit Angie. Maybe I thought that it was related to Angie, which is correct. But at the same time, I was also like trying to link it to Tenko. I really didn't link it to Angie at all. I just didn't thought Angie would come here. I also thought that the culprit hurt themselves. I almost thought that we needed to search the bodies of every student to see if they had an injury or something. That would have completely wasted everyone's time. It's so amazing that Hyuichi figured all of this out. Hyuichi was truly smarter than me during this class trial, because I was like pulling out some blanks. Like, yeah, I was kind of like suspicious of Korikyo, but again, it's such a suspicion. I immediately, like, as soon as I couldn't find the evidence to convict Korikyo, I kind of jumped towards Gonta or something like that. My mind was pulling out blanks during this trial. This was an amazing trial, holy shit. Like, the trick is so creative. And also, we had one of the best troll moments. Like, there's a compilation of Kokichi trolling everyone during this case. I love it so much. And Kokichi also helped out with Himiko, was trying to repress her own emotions, and Kokichi let everything out. And it's super nice to see Himiko being all expressive and stuff. She's so beautiful. And Kokichi also helped out with this. Yeah, I think people might hate me for this, but yeah, I'll put it. It's definitely better than 2.5. It's definitely better. It's S tier. S tier. I love it. And chapter 4. The thing about this chapter is that, well, first of all, Gonta losing his memory is really cool. And everyone is just not realizing it. And he himself is just not realizing it. It's so tragic. But also, it's such a well written. It's almost like well written in the same vein as chapter 1. So in that sense, it's a really great chapter. So it's done really well. And even when watching Let's Plays, I kind of realized that not a whole lot of Let's Players realized that Gonta has lost his memory. Because, everyone just kind of treats Gonta as an idiot. Kind of, like, in hindsight, kind of ridiculous how nobody realized that Gonta had lost his memories. It just goes to show how people just didn't understand Gonta at all and just treated him like an idiot this whole time. And there's a clear difference between Gonta being an idiot and Gonta losing his memories. And Gonta losing his memories made his reactions really genuine. It made it really genuine. Even if you do the cross out process of elimination and found out that Gonta could have been the only suspect, then you might think that maybe I made a mistake in my cross examination. Gonta's has not been acting like that. Look at him. He's crying and shit. He's not acting. He's being completely genuine. And I think that kind of mentality kind of affected a lot of people's detective work. I was watching a Let's Play of Razbowski, and he just completely neglected Gonta being the culprit. And this case is not hard. I actually think this is one of the easier cases in Danganronpa V3. It's almost as easy as thinking that Kaito is the culprit, but the difference between Kaito's case and Gonta's case is that it's so hard to click into the theory of Kaito being the culprit because so many evidences is against that. So even if you do think that certain things, people like Shuichi think the possibility of Kaito being the culprit, there's just so many evidences stacked against that, to the point that it's kind of hard to figure out that there's evidences for it. Whereas there is clear evidences that Gonta is the culprit, but you could completely neglect those evidences because of the way Gonta's acting. And yeah, Gonta's acting is very genuine. But I do think that the process of elimination could have been a lot more complex. I think Kokichi's process of elimination is kind of cool. It's kind of cool because it's kind of like in a wishy-washy spot where it's kind of possible to kill someone without touching them if you use the tool. And the culprit did use the toilet paper. But again, strangulation, the cause of death was strangulation. So Kokichi strangling Miu without letting Miu touch her is really, really hard. It's almost impossible. So I think there's a little bit of a wishy-washiness there. So I think that was kind of a well-made thing. I think everything else was super easy to figure out. Suspecting Tsumugi is almost impossible because unless you think that Tsumugi made a contraption while being away from Shuichi, but that's kind of hard because Tsumugi has to find some way to destroy that contraption if she used certain contraptions. And using a contraption really is not the case here. Kaito is really out of the suspect zone. As soon as you read the poison, you kind of realize, oh, Kaito couldn't have poisoned Miu because the poison literally says the victim should have bloodshot eyes. And it's really clear that it's not the case. And Kaito was this case, in terms of mystery, it plagiarizes a lot of 2-4, Danganronpa 2, case 4. It's very similar to that case. And I also think it kind of overhints a little bit too. Maybe a little too much. I kind of really don't want to hammer this case and rate them low because they overhinted at certain stuff. But it's fine. It doesn't really do a lot of dumb stuff. It's just the monitor gives out huge hints, and that hints are helped a lot. That's all the case. And the characters also kind of like act a little too dumb in the virtual world. I think the writers just kind of underestimated how easy it is to figure out the secret of the virtual world, maybe. And also, the case being inside the virtual world actually sort of makes it really easy to solve things out because every evidence is concrete. There's no wishy-washiness inside it. Things are like very clear cut. Yeah, we also hear Kibo's voice. That also kind of makes it possible that Kibo is inside the mansion side. But yeah, but the more you go into it, you kind of realize there's no possible way for Kibo to enter it. Like you hearing Kibo's voice makes you think that oh maybe Kibo is inside the mansion side and maybe Mew died in the mansion side, but nah, that's not the case. But at the same time, like Tsumugi seeing Mew kind of really makes things really obvious that the crime probably happened there on the mansion side. Yeah, it's kind of really obvious. It's not that hard to figure it out. I think the floorboard, the board, flowing through this and coming out into this, kind of just is a really solid evidence that that's how exactly the world works. But then again, also Gonto is he's a pretty cool, smart guy to throw the murder weapon right towards here. I kind of wonder if the avatars have a pocket or something, because if it had a pocket, he could have simply put it inside himself, but I guess not. So overall, yeah, this case isn't that hard, and also yeah, it kind of drags on to certain trials. But I think more than that, I think the drama in this case is amazing. You know, you gotta do the trial. Yeah, the drama is really amazing towards the second half. And it kind of also digs deep into Kaito's a lot of flaws that Kaito has. That he's just super stubborn and his own belief in stuff is just oh, I want to believe in my friends and stuff. It just kind of like turns around and becomes, oh, I want to act the way I want to. I don't want to face reality. It kind of could be translated into something as awful as that, unfortunately. Completely ignoring the evidences and truth. Just going on a tangent and being aggressive, just angry just because he doesn't like how things are, how the world is. It's so sad. It is so sad. I love the drama too, but like, yeah, it kind of works out really well because Kokichi is such a piece of shit, but at the same time, there's a lot of cool, really good and righteous characters like Kaito, Shuichi, Tsumugi, and Tsumugi's lying, but you know, Tsumugi. There's also like super logical characters like Maki and stuff. Yeah, the characters are amazing. The character writing was amazing. I love these characters a lot. Yeah, the drama is really great, and the case is pretty obvious. It's not that obvious because you still need to do the cross examinations, but I think you never really have a hard time cross exam. Like you have the process of eliminate. But it's kind of not that hard to eliminate every single character. Like Kibo, Maki, and Himiko are so easy to eliminate because there really isn't any reason to think that they were on the mansion side. You hear Kibo's voice, but you know you kind of understood that voice can travel through this. Objects can travel through the walls, including voices. Only the wall only blocks off the character avatars from doing anything. So those three are crossed out easily. Kaito's very easy to cross out because he went out of the virtual world very early on. The only ones that are kind of hard to cross out are Kokichi and Tsumugi. But Tsumugi is also kind of easy to out because he had an alibi with Shuichi and there is no contraption left. Like you could super like Giga Chat overthink this and think that there is some sort of a contraption that the culprit that Tsumugi used, and she was big brainy and trying to create an alibi for herself. But that's kind of bullshit. There's no evidence to support that. And Kokichi, you also realize that the evidence. You kind of realize why certain things are the way they are, and why Kokichi couldn't have committed the crime. So it's kind of really easy for a smart person to just figure it all out. Like crossing out Tsumugi and Kokichi are not hard at all. Like this case desperately needed a really creative way to cross out Kiba or Maki or Himiko or someone. It really needed a smart way to cross out certain characters, unfortunately. But it doesn't have that, so unfortunately this case is kind of easy to solve. Possibly. I still really like it. I think the themes surrounding it, the drama surrounding it is amazing. The people just cry and it's like, holy shit. It is so fucking depressing. I don't know. I really used to have a high opinion of this case, but the more I thought about it, people cry around it, but people cry around this case too. This case also had some really good emotional messages, important messages, and Kokichi did a really good job here. And Kokyo is still a very interesting character. He had very interesting things to say, even if it wasn't that emotionally maddening. Whereas this case is still crazy. It's still crazy. It has also good themes. I think the murder mystery and how self-plagiarizing it is and how obvious it is kind of drags it down a little bit. But it's still S. And yes, I'm still going to put it above Case 5. I'm sorry. It's still like on par. I could put this, maybe this. I was actually thinking about this. But no. You 2-5 fans need to be humbled, okay? And yeah, I know there like every single case except this is going to be on S tier. I don't care. Case 5 is amazing. It still holds up best. I think one of the biggest reasons why Case 5 trial holds up really well is because of Kaito's motive and them trying to rebel against the killing game. And also, I think a lot of crazy shit happening, of Maki trying to kill Kokichi and Kokichi and Kaito fighting one another. That kind of made the case really complex. And also Himiko tried to help them out. And I really am glad that Kodaka made it so that the game absolutely trolls the fuck out of the players by making the player go on the wrong fury for a while. I really liked that aspect, and I also really like how Himiko just forgets to mention the fact that there are 3 arrows, and that's fine. You don't need every single evidence to be presented to you during the investigation. If anything, that's kind of frustrating because if certain evidences are presented very earlier on, makes you kind of confused on why the characters are not just figuring out this shit immediately. I still think there are certain things such as why does Maki leave the hammer at the crime scene? Like, I know she was like emotionally messed up, but come on, girl, you could have just simply taken away the hammer away from the crime scene. It wasn't that hard to do. Maki is kind of smart. She should have just taken away the hammer. And I love how we get to see both Kaito and Kokichi. I know people are trying to complaining about how, I wish that Kaito and Kokichi took turns to act out their personalities so that Kaito wouldn't be so obvious as the suspect. Bro, it's not Kodaka's fault that you're mind gaming this, like you're metagaming this. Like, the characters in the series has no reason to think that Kaito is inside the exocell because Kaito is a good guy and he'll never toy with his friends like that. Kaito pretending to be Kokichi and messing with Maki just doesn't make sense from a motive standpoint. That's why also Kaito is not trying to do that. He's mostly in Kokichi mode all the time because that's what Kokichi would do. And also, well, Kaito is also trying to make them choose the wrong option, and in order to trick Monokuma, he's also doing that. So yeah, yeah, and I also kind of this case entirely hinged on the fact that Kaito and Kokichi worked together, and I think them trying to rebel against their killing game and them working together, and then like I really love this case fight because it simultaneously furthers the character development of Kaito, Kokichi, and Maki, as well as Shuichi and a whole bunch of characters, even perhaps Himiko to an extent, and while also creating a super complex mystery out of it. And the mystery is complex because of the fact that you know these characters and you gain to understand these characters through these 5 chapters, and that this case sort of flips that understanding through their character development. Kokichi puts down his ego for once and works together with Kaito and begs Kaito to help and trusts Kaito to carry his plan, whereas Kaito trusts Kokichi's plan and does this extremely good acting. Kaito's actually kind of a really good actor. He was just super biased against lying, and he was super biased against tricking and going against hurting his friends, to the point that he was like restricting himself. But when his restrictions and his dogmas and beliefs about always being true and his dogmas about lying and cheating, and he threw away all this heroic nonsense bullshit, he kind of became capable and to act out this plan. And that's super cool. Like Kaito is capable of acting and being a dick to his friends in order to save his friends. It's really impressive. It's really impressive how Kaito and Kokichi developed through the events of chapter 4. And their character development made them super unpredictable. Not even Shuichi could like truly understand Kaito, despite the fact that Kaito was inside the exile. Like Shuichi thought that he understood Kaito, but at the end of the day, Kaito is still Kaito. Even if Kaito was understandable and predictable in chapter 4 or previous time, he changed. He became a completely different person who is willing to do this Machiavellian thing in order to save his friends and do all this, literally become Kokichi in order to save his friends. And he threw away these biases to enact this plan, and it's super cool. I really respect Kaito for this change. And it also made the mystery all the more difficult and confusing to solve. Yeah, it's kind of also really funny how the American version kind of made this case even more harder to solve, because in the Japanese version, I think the Japanese version is sort of like makes more sense. There's a slight pause where you wouldn't be able to see Kaito at all, and then the hydraulic press crashes down, whereas in this American version, that is not the case. You can actually see Kaito's hand before the hydraulic press goes down. Yeah, look at this, boom. Yeah, baby, let's go. Kaito did. Really just goes to show. And also Kokichi fake drinking. That's really fun. That's really funny. You can almost look at the CG and think that, oh, they were just lazy on the CG, but nah, they weren't lazy. You can actually see that Kokichi fake drinked on the CG, because it's not that hard to just erase the ball from the CG. This is actually really funny. The CG almost spoils it, but people don't take the CG very seriously. But yeah, it's such a great case. It does wonders for Kaito, Kokichi, and Maki's characters. I know people hate Maki so much because of this, but this is such bullshit, man. Like, you all hate Junko for being an awful. You all love Junko for being a sadistic bastard. There are a lot of like villains people love, but like suddenly Maki does this thing where she tries to take revenge on Kokichi, and you guys are like super mad. Like, yeah, they kind of like easily forgive Maki, but like after like Maki has lost Kaito and like she is like crying and shitting herself. Why would they even give Maki that much shit, you know? And also, well, Mew was dead. If Mew was alive, she will definitely give Maki a lot of shit. That's also one of the biggest issues of having so few characters, is that we have few instances of discussions, because I think Shuji is just a nice guy and he understood that Maki was not going to do anything horrible like that again. And also, well, it's not that Maki hates the fact that Shuji, she just really hates the fact that Kokichi is going to live, and that she was so heartbroken and so angry about the horrible things that Kokichi has done to her, that she was willing to take so much revenge. And yeah, I kind of like wanted to think that Maki kind of wanted to survive too, but that's clearly not the case. Maki didn't need to like go so hard to like make them vote wrongly if she wanted to survive. I mean, I guess she could have, but her reason wasn't to survive. She really just wanted to kill Kokichi, make everyone vote wrongly. That's kind of like fucked up. Still goes to show that Maki has a lot of hatred inside of herself. There's a lot of things that are wrong about her. And also, yeah, Monokuma teaming up with you is super fun. This case is super fun. And also, Kokichi, despite being dead, has one of his best lines in this trial. So Excellent Kokichi was super fun. It made things very interesting. It's also very unique in the sense that you never have any... Like, okay, with Nagito you kind of have during the first trial. A certain culprit who has done awful things is in front of you and constantly taunting you, and you can't do anything about it. That sort of things kind of don't really happen a lot. Whereas in this case, it definitely happens Nagito style. But the unfortunate aspect of Case 5 is that in the Danganronpa 2 is that Nagito is dead, whereas in here, Kokichi is alive. Well, I mean, Kaito's acting it, but Kaito does a really good impression of Kokichi, so it kind of works out. It makes things very interesting and entertaining. And also, Kaito comes out and just gives out the biggest bomb to Maki, and I love it. I think in terms of character development, themes and stuff, it was amazing. This case was amazing in terms of character development. In terms of who done it, it's kind of obvious, but there's also like alternative theories, like both of them are dead or both of them are alive. There are certain alternative theories, but yeah, in terms of whodunits, it's kind of like obvious. But I still really love it. Yeah, it's probably around here. Maybe it's probably here, honestly. But like I kind of like defaulted back to this. When I played this first case, I cried. I think I almost cried, and I was like emotionally devastated ever since I played 3-1. And I think no other Danganronpa case has ever emotionally devastated me as hard as the first case of 3-1. And in regards to 3-6, 3-6 is a good case, but it's not really a mystery in the traditional sense, right? But it's still really cool. People still like figure things out through the evidences they found. And these like plot twists have been foreshadowed from the start of the game. I have even made an entire video about it. But Borderline, I really enjoyed the mystery. And even if it's not technically a mystery in the traditional sense, it's still like fair mystery. If you like paid attention in chapter 1, you will realize that everything is fiction. Nico B actually played through chapter 1 at the prologue of the chapter 1, and he actually theorized that this game might have everything is a fictional, these characters are fictional twist, and he just forgot about that theory because he was just so engrossed in the fiction, engrossed in the story, that he completely forgot about his original theory, which was right. That theory came to be true, and figuring out how Tsumugi is the culprit, it's kind of easy, but at the same time, it could also kind of test your memory. With Tsumugi is the only one who said didn't give birth. It kind of like tests you out your theory really well, your memory really well. If you have a good memory, you can like solve this. Shuichi has a good memory, so he knew about this problem. He just stayed quiet because detectives don't spill their beans. They play their cards close to their chest. Yeah, I know people really hate the fiction twist, but like I made a video about it. You can check it out. I'm not going to talk about it. Overall, this case is really fun. In terms of mystery, it's pretty cool. In terms of character development, it also does a lot of stuff. It addresses Shuichi's dogma of, his obsession with truth and his negligence of lies. So when Kaide is revealed to be a fictional character, Shuichi just kind of like gives up, and he just kind of like super sad, becomes super sad, and he becomes sad because he has a dogma against fiction, against lies, and he thought that the truth was against the lies, which is not the case at all. Yeah, this case is great. The themes and the arguments that Shuichi says is so important, so crucial, and in this case also kind of showcases Juko's mentality and makes it more relatable. Because when people say that Juko is just a cliche villain, she just wanted to feel despair, that's not relatable at all. And then you suddenly make Twitch chat and a cosplayer anime weeaboo a villain, and then suddenly it's the most relatable thing ever. It kind of like puts everything into a little bit of a perspective, huh? Like things that people just say, Juko is like, she's so unrelatable, bad villain. No, she is relatable because the outside world is so relatable. Everyone loves killing games. Killing games are fun, fun, fun. I mean, that's why people just can't stop playing these Danganronpa games. Technically, there's a Ace Attorney game, and while Ace Attorney is pretty popular, people who like Danganronpa also like it because of the death game aspect. And like death game stories like Battle Royale and are popular because of that. It's kind of like fun to see people, try to fight for their own lives, I guess. And people also want to experience good stories, so there you have it. That's the twist.